Okay, so welcome everybody, Fáilte Romhaibh Golair, to our celebration of Afri, Comhlámh and VSI. It's their birthday, so Afri is 50, Comhlámh is 50, VSI is 60 years old this year. So happy birthday! Woo! Okay, so it really is a celebration tonight. And already I have met people that I have known 20 years ago through intense campaigns and collaborations. And I feel just so lucky to be in a room with all of you once again, and with loads of new faces as well, which is so reassuring. That we have a new generation of activists that are part of our struggle now. Okay, can everybody hear? Is it okay? Yeah? Bit of hush? Great. Okay, super. So today and tonight we're celebrating the work of Afri, Comhlámh and VSI, and of all of the people and all of the social movements that have contributed to their work over a combined 160 years, if you add them all up, in terms of the work that has been put in by these three wonderful organizations. So I know we all have some involvement with at least one of the hosting organizations tonight. But thinking about it myself, I realized I actually have involvement with all three. And I think that's probably the same for many of you here because of the strong ties between the three organizations and the people that have supported them over those many years. So I was thinking myself, about my connection with the three groups and remembering, okay, VSI was the constant, dependable support as a member of Debt and Development Coalition, as it used to be known, now Financial Justice Ireland, who I could always call on to support us in times of need, whether it was in terms of running the network or in terms of the political campaigns of the organisation. I think of Afri and the deeply renewing experiences that I have had personally by being part of Afri events, by going on the famine walks, and the huge kind of reviving effect those experiences had on me as an activist. And I think of Comhlámh and my membership 20 years ago of the Trade Justice Group in Comhlámh, which really introduced me to a critical education about how the global political economy works. And all of those things, I think, have really shaped my life. And even in talking to some of you today, you are all echoing that kind of thing, because these three organizations have essentially facilitated us to make sense of the world around us and to also really work and fight to change it for the better. So going through some of those memories, you'll see that there are installations that are in the next room. Okay, so some of you have already hopefully visited. It's a kind of free flow night where you can wander between the two rooms. So we have where you can threads where you can put your words of memory, hope, or solidarity. We have artifacts which will jog a lot of memories for you in terms of the kinds of events the three organizations have been involved in, the sorts of campaigns. You can find more reading material about Palestine also while you're there, and much more. So please do kind of move throughout the two rooms, because people are really sharing their memories with each other that are being prompted by those wonderful installations. We also have a story booth where people can share their reflections on the meaning of solidarity, and Raj here, it will be available to do little video filmings of that, which we're very grateful for. And these are things that we can actually look back on and as a kind of archive, perhaps 10 years from now. So I think Afri, Comhlámh and VSI have really facilitated our participation in world-changing movements and campaigns. So I think of supporting the struggle of the people in Ogoniland. I think of supporting the people of East Timor for their independent nation, fighting apartheid, supporting the right of children to play in Mosney, or just up in Meath, in children who are in the international protection system, supporting the community in Rossport in opposing the impact of shell oil and fossil fuels on their community. So those examples show us that we don't win a lot of the time, most of the time perhaps, but sometimes we do win. So it is really important that we gather together this group of deeply interconnected people in order to remind ourselves of that. And I think that is so important at a time of genocide against the Palestinian people, at a time when we're seeing the rise of fascism around the world, that we gather together and we take strength in each other and in the struggle. So we have wonderful music with us today. So big thanks to our session musicians who have been playing so wonderfully in the beginning of our evening. Yay. So many thanks to Del Thorogood, Chris Small, Katrina Dietz, and Enda O'Cohoin. So they will be entertaining us throughout the evening. So thank you so much to the four of you. Okay, so when we say we're in the struggle, we have always said we are for bread, but we're for roses too. So we are going to continue to make merry. So please help yourself to food and to the drinks that are available throughout the evening. Feel free to move around the room. But what we'll do now is we're going to have just a bit of a reflection point from some of key people who have been deeply involved in the organisations that we are celebrating this evening. So first of all, I don't know who's going to go first. Are we having... Yeah? We have Afri first. Would that be okay, Joe? Or Comhlámh? Comhlámh first. Great. Okay, so Comhlámh. Let's welcome Saif Bresnahan. Thank you. And Jose Venegas. So. Great. Over to you guys.
Good evening, everyone. I think Katie was going to do a bit of shushing there at the back, but she's gotten involved in chats herself now. So shh. There you go. Great to see so many people and so exciting, the energy. We just have a little window as Comhlámh, and then VSI and Afri also pieces. And as Comhlámh, myself and Jose on the staff team, and we were talking about how we could, who could say something for Comhlámh, who could represent, who could be a spokesperson, and we got very muddled, and we even spoke to a few members. One of them's here tonight, and I was asking her, and she said, well, you'd have to get everybody up on stage. That's the only way you could do it. And I think we were thinking the same way. So what we did, rather than getting everybody up, we spent some time with the archives, and over the past few months we've been, maybe through conversations and through those archives, gathering stories and kind of imbibing a little bit of the past and the roots of the organization that we work in. And Jose has a small piece then that he's going to read that reflects some of that which we gathered. Just maybe wait, there's a few people finding seats and settling down. Okay, so Jose, yep.
Thank you, Saif. You drank cup of Tradecraft instant coffee from Tanzania. You put magazines out into the world every 3 months. You attended public seminars that stress the similarities rather than difference between Ireland and the so-called third world. You gain lifelong friends. You grieve for friends you lost. You attend First Wednesday, Last Thursday, First Friday, hikes on Sunday. You march against apartheid. You were active in Cork, Galway, Donegal, Kilkenny, Cavan, Wexford, Belfast, and Limerick. You knew Eustace Street, Bagot Street, Camden Street, Aston Key, Parliament Street. You helped pack Comhlamh News, Third World Now, Focus. You march against US foreign policy. You campaign for more overseas development aid. You attend our public meetings, spring seminars, development forums. You were an officer, a member, a coordinator, receptionist, administrative assistant, treasurer, a secretary, a chair, a field worker, an assistant, a project worker. You organized pub quizzes for Central America Week. You made banners and placards on the floor alongside others. You were part of a coming home weekend. You organized office keys and post boxes for info and support groups set up for Guatemala, Kurdistan, Cambodia, Burma, Congo, and Nicaragua. Also, for the Irish Mozambique group, MASI, ARASI, Irish Syria Solidarity, Irish Housing Network, Cooking for Freedom, Banulok, also Irish Black and Migrant Women, Ella, Dublin for Gaza, and the Irish Marxists. Also PBI, Friends of Freedom Theatre in Ireland, Basic Income Ireland, Afghan Social Cultural Center, Attack Ireland, Irish Feminist Network, the Afghan Times, Refugee for Refugees Ireland. You march for trade justice. You attend weekends away in Glencree, Baltinglass, Cranacastle, Westport, Newcastle, Kinsale, Dingle, Dooling, and Halloween Hoolies. You were part of refugee solidarity, trips to the beach, and policy campaigning. You marched for a free Palestine. You were part of a program called The World on Our Doorstep, bringing it all back home, living in one world, resourcing solidarity. You had your mind changed. You had your assumption challenged. You had your ideas tested. You enjoyed. You grew. You were part of a place. You are part of a place that strives to make and remake community, that stands for critical voice in solidarity with others, that aims for more justice and transformation, that doesn't have all the answer, that is locally, that is thinking globally, that is Comhlamh. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Simon Jose. Next, we'll call on the representatives from VSI. So we have Tom Ryder, who was a volunteer in India in the 70s, the first employee of VSI, retired in 2017, but now is one of the most active volunteers with VSI. We also, Tom is joined by Ala Amro, and Ala is a staff member of VSI from Palestine and living in the Netherlands currently. And Megan Atkinson also joins, and Megan has been volunteering with VSI since 2023 with young people working on a project in Greece, is a student and a spoken word activist. So welcome.
Do you want the long one or the short one? It's a great honour to be here tonight and to see so many faces that I know, and from the three great organisations that are celebrating their anniversaries. Just to say a little bit about VSI, just in case people don't know, we're part of an international peace movement called Service Civil International, started in 1920. And the first project was actually in Verdun, the scene of some of the worst fighting in that war. And the aim was to try and bring people from opposing nations who had fought in that war together, French, German, English, Belgian, Italians. And from those early seeds, the aim of the organisation was to promote peace and reconciliation. And that's still one of the major aims today. VSI was started in 1965 in Ireland by two immigrants, and I think that's quite important in this day and age when there's such a lot of bad press about immigrants, and not only bad press but action on the streets about it. Konrad Laser was a German Jew who escaped from Nazi Germany moved to Britain before the outbreak of the war, was interned in the war, both in England and Canada, came back and got involved in IVS, which is the English branch of SCI, work camps, and met his wife on the first work camp he took part in. He had proposed to her by the end of the work camp, I heard. And they married the year later. Now, they moved to Dublin in '62, and they were asked, because they had been active IVS members, they were asked to try and help set up a VSI group. They did, and the first year of the projects, they set up two projects, one a cross-border project on the River Woodford in County Cavan, with the Irish Tourist Board and the Northern Irish Tourist Board. And Dorothea went up to visit the project, and they actually got on a boat to see what work they would do. It was kind of an environmental project to clear the scrubland on the side of the canal. And Harry West was a Northern Ireland minister, and Erskine Childers was the Minister for Tourism down here. They were on the boat, and Lord Brookborough, the county sheriff of Fermanagh, was there as well. And the boat landed on the south side, south of the border on the River Woodford, and Lord Brookborough got down onto the bank, and he said, "This is the first time I've set my foot in the Republic since 1916, I think he said." So Dorothea said, "Well, that's a good start. That's something is on the move here." So since those early days, VSI has organised a wide range of projects throughout Ireland, has sent many volunteers to many countries around the world. We've also been involved in local voluntary work. We've a lot of work. We had a lot of local groups all over the country, in Galway, in Kilkenny, Waterford, Dublin, Galway especially. We had a very active youth program, teenage program as we call it, where we tried to involve young, disadvantaged young people to take part in volunteering and things like that. We had a very active development education. We have a development education program where we, right through, probably mirroring things like Comhlámh and Afri were doing, we got involved in issues like film festivals and producing refugee packs and other educational packs for use in the promotion of development education. I suppose we've run over 1,000 projects in Ireland over those 60 years, which is a huge number of projects. We've also sent quite a lot of volunteers, as I said, to many countries worldwide. But I think all those projects, have individual organisations in the 32 counties of Ireland, whether they be working in the environment, working for a better, fair and just society, working for people with disabilities. There's stories to be told there from all those different organisations, and for all those volunteers who got active in VSI and helped us to develop our programmes in Ireland. Just to say, I think we should thank really all those volunteers who helped to build the organisation and helped to sustain it, often in difficult times, financial problems, crises of different kinds that voluntary groups face. And they have been great, whether they be youth leaders, whether they be work camp leaders, whether they be taking maybe a volunteer out to the airport or renewing their passport or anything, any assistance like that. One of the things that in October this year we planted 60 trees for the 60 years of VSI in Killarney National Park. And on that day we remembered all those people, especially those volunteers who passed away. I'm thinking of maybe common volunteers to Comhlamh and maybe Afri as well. Barbara Gill, former chair of VSI, Michael Donoghue from Galway. Really active and great people who contributed so much to them. And maybe that's what we could do tonight as well, to remember those volunteers who've now moved on from this life and who made such a great contribution. So we'd say thanks to all those hundreds of volunteers. And one of the things that I picked out from the archives, which I'm working on at the moment, we hope to have them ready early next year, was a quote from a Navan Travellers summer project. It was the first time we did one in 1981. And it was announced to all the young travellers that there was international volunteers arriving in Navan. It was a big excitement in the area. And many young travellers were at the bus stop for 3 or 4 days before the volunteers arrived, asking anybody that looked young and had a haversack, "Are you for the summer play scheme?" Those kind of little things. We don't know what that meant. We actually don't know what that meant to the young people. It meant an awful lot. And so just to say, VSI is still going today and active, and we're looking forward to many more years of activity. So enjoy the evening, and thank you very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Ala. I will read the poem for a Palestinian poet, Mahmoud Darwish, on this land. I will read it in Arabic first, as I would like to take you to Palestine, and then I will read it in English. And just a bit, the word land and the word Palestine are both female words in the Arabic as a gender word. So, yeah. على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. تردد إبريل رائحة الخبز في الفجر، آراء امرأة في الرجال، كتابات أسخيلوس، أول الحب، عشب على حجر، أمهات تقفن على خيط ناي، وخوف الغزاة من الذكريات. على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. نهاية أيلول، سيدة تترك 40 بكامل مشمشها، ساعة الشمس في السجن، غيم يقلد سربا من الكائنات، هتافات شعب لمن يصعدون إلى حتفهم باسمين، وخوف الطغاة من الأغنيات. على هذه الأرض ما يستحق الحياة. على هذه الأرض سيدة الأرض، أم البدايات، أم النهايات. كانت تسمى فلسطين، صارت تسمى فلسطين. سيدتي أستحق لأنك سيدتي، أستحق الحياة. I will switch to English now. On this land, is what makes life worth living. The return of April, the smell of bread at dawn, women opinions on men, the writings of Aeschylus, love's beginnings, moss on stones, mothers standing on the string of a flute, and the invader's fear of memories. On this land is what makes life worth living. The end of September, a lady leaving her 40s full of apricots, the hour of sun in prison, clouds becoming a swarm of creatures, the chance of a nation that faces its demise smiling, and the tourney's fear of songs. On this land is what makes life worth living. On this land is the lady of the land, the mother of the beginnings and the endings. She was named Palestine, still named Palestine. My lady, I am worth because you are my lady. I am worth of life. Thank you for listening.
How's it going, everyone? Not great anyway, is it? I says, how's it going, everyone? Well, I'm glad you are all right, because my nerves are gone. So, my name is Megan, and if you couldn't tell, I'm from Dublin. And it's a real privilege to be here this evening. I was delighted to be asked by Helen to do a spoken word piece. And I hope I do VSI justice. VSI, Voluntary Service International. We're a small organisation, but our impact is big. 6 decades long, what has kept us going strong? Human connection. That's what's kept us on this upward projection. But before we look to the future, I'd like to give you a blast from the past. When we started right here in Dublin's north in a city, planting trees with Spike Milligan and getting shout out on RTE's Late Late Show, we were cool and we didn't even know. But what we did know was the importance of volunteering and opportunity. And at the essence of it was community. And we started right here. This is the land where the seeds were sown. Working with young people who are marginalised, disenfranchised, disadvantaged. Those were the labels they were granted. But it's not about taking pity on kids from the north in a city. It's about empowerment and reclaiming space, movement, volunteering in a different country, in a different place, sitting human to human, face to face, having conversations about privilege, disability, ethnicity, or race, and wondering, why do I even think like this in the first place? That's what VSI is. That's what it's about. And if you don't believe me, or if you have any doubt, just look for someone with a tweed cap and I'll guarantee you they'll have a yap. But now I want to get back to the future. I'm talking offline, no computer. In person, like we are tonight. I want to make sure I say this right. Volunteering isn't just about you or me, it's the us, it's the we. It might sound cliche, but I have to say, don't underestimate that human connection, because when you're feeling lost, alone, or lacking direction, volunteering can create that sense of caring. And that's why we're here tonight. It's a community of collaboration, talking about topics like global justice, citizenship, education, and projects on climate justice. But it's not just us. It's solidarity with Comhlámh and Afri. And tonight's a celebration, and we've set a good foundation. So here's to the next generation. We're a small organisation, but our impact is big. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Tom, Megan, and Ala. Next, I'm going to call on Joe Murray, who is going to speak about Afri. Joe needs no introduction, I think, the former coordinator of Afri for many years and a special advisor to the organisation too. Now, okay, Joe, you're welcome.
Thanks very much, Nessa, and I wish I was able to speak like Megan, speak in rhyme, but I'm afraid it's going to be very prosaic, so don't expect poetry. But as Tom said, it's a great honour to be here this evening to celebrate 160 years of solidarity with Afri, Comhlámh and VSI. And I cannot think of a better theme to have chosen for this gathering than the celebration of solidarity. I've often said that solidarity is one of my favourite words because of what it means. And a great thing about solidarity is that anybody can do it, and there are many, many ways of doing it, as shown by the work of the three organisations represented here today. Solidarity has many guises. What I want to do in this short reflection is to remember a few of the ways that we in Afri did solidarity over the past 50 years. I could cite hundreds of examples, and so also, I'm sure, could Comhlámh and VSI, but I will limit it to just a few. To start, I want to refer to what I think is an unusual but important dimension of solidarity, one that is often neglected, and that is the element of memory and remembering. I said on a previous occasion that remembering is a revolutionary act, to which my good friend Robbie McVeigh added an important qualification, that to misremember is often a reactionary act, and that misremembering can be as bad as forgetting. And we don't have to go far to find current examples of forgetting and misremembering. Memory and remembering have been central parts of Afri's work over many years, and it started as we approached the 150th anniversary of An Gorta Mór, the great famine in the 1980s. And we were determined that this anniversary would not pass unnoticed, as had happened with the 100th anniversary. So among other things, we started the famine walk in 1988, and this has continued until today. If we were to start again, I wouldn't call it a famine walk, but that's a debate for another day. Obviously, remembering an event like An Gorta Mór is extremely important because it reminds us of where we have come from and who we are as a people. It reminds us of the colonial history which many people want to forget, and it reminds us of the consequences of colonialism, 1 million dead and more than 1 million forced to flee as refugees. How utterly relevant is that today, and how urgently our political leaders need to be reminded of it as they frantically try to forget our past, our history, and join with the big colonial powers of Europe and with the USA to exclude and exploit the global South and its people, and to recolonize our world again. Another event we've organised in this theme in Afri since 1998 is an annual hedge school. And as you know, the hedge school, Skull Cush Clee, the school by the hedge, emerged as a powerfully creative response to the denial of education during the penal laws in the depths of the colonial period in Ireland. There are many elements of Afri work that I could focus on, but this evening I want to refer to the way we have used theatre, music and arts as part of our work, as a form of cultural resistance. We did it with the help of the great Pete Molyneux in our educational work, but a big part of it was done in partnership with somebody who was supposed to be here tonight but wasn't able to make it, Donald O'Kelly, whom we were lucky to have on our board and effectively as an artist in residence since we first met during the Dunn Store strike back in 1984. Donald wrote, led and produced Jimmy Gralton's Dance Hall, the first time Jimmy Gralton's story was told in the form of theatre, and this led to the Ken Loach, Paul Laverty film and an Abbey Theatre play called Jimmy's Hall. It tells the story of Leitrim farmer Jimmy Galton, the only Irishman ever deported from his own country. His crime was to build a dance hall where he encouraged the local community to learn, to debate and to dream, but above all to dance and have fun. As the hall grew in popularity, its free-spirited reputation brought it to the attention of the church and politicians, who forced Jimmy to flee and the hall to close. The strapline of Donald Kelly's version of Jimmy Galton's dance hall was where everyone has a right to dance and a solid floor to dance on, which I'd like to think was a summary of what we have been trying to do in Afri since its beginning back in 1975. Jimmy Galton's dance hall was powerful, especially when performed in Belmullet, County Mayo, in the presence of many from the Rossport community during the height of the Shell to Sea campaign. The show was an explosion of music, song, colour and wild dancing. It was also an act of protest, defiance and challenge. And I saw at first hand the impact that this had and in the hope and encouragement it brought to the local community as they went through a horrific experience of abuse at the hands of government and big corporations. Another play also written and performed by Donald was Fionnuala. It was written in response to the provocative naming by Shell of the gigantic 500 tons, 149 metre long tunnel boring machine after Fionnuala of the Children of Lir. In Donald's play, Fionnuala the Swan from the Children of Lir speaks the truth about what is happening in Rossport and how Willie Carduff was beaten and left for dead by Shell security. And this was when we knew Willie had been beaten up, but we couldn't speak about it. So Donald found an amazing device around that by having Fionnuala the Swan speak about it, so that if Shell had taken us to court, the Swan would have had to give evidence. And I'm sure Donald would have been very happy to play that role. I remember we performed it in Rossport, you know, when the struggle was at its height. And we performed it at the gates of the Shell compound. And it had only one prop, a silver table. And Donald and myself carried the table from the Solidarity camp to the gates of the Shell compound where Donald performed it. I remember Donald saying as we carried the table, he said, "I think we have finally lost our minds." And another last example, and this is kind of a tribute to Donald O'Kelly, and he was supposed to be here, and I'm disappointed he's not here. In another way, I'm glad he isn't, because he wouldn't allow me to do it. He would have heckled me down by this stage, I think. He's the most humble man on the planet. Also, I probably don't do justice to his describing his work, but when Chelsea Manning was in prison, we invited her family to Dublin, her uncles, her mother and her aunts, and we had an extraordinary meeting in Trinity College addressed by Jerry Conlon of the Guildford Four. And it was a powerful speech, memorable speech. It's on the Afri YouTube channel if you haven't seen it. And in response to this, again, Donald created what was called the Manning Truth Fest. And this was a group of musicians and artists who went to Wales to support the family of Chelsea and to raise the issue of Chelsea's imprisonment for being a whistleblower, for exposing the horror of the war in Iraq. And when Jerry Conlon spoke, he said, "I wish we had a Chelsea Manning when we were in prison, that somebody would blow the whistle on what was happening." But that was, it was an extraordinary experience of solidarity through music and friendship and fellowship, and it was kind of music on the high seas. We took the boat over. But there's one particular trip that I remember particularly, because it didn't go so well, we had myself and everybody else who couldn't sing or perform in one car, and all the musicians in the other car. And the musicians missed the boat. And we had a show on, a sold-out show for that evening. And the four of us, none of whom had a note in our heads, looked at each other in despair, wondering how we were going to entertain the audience that night at this sold-out venue. So I think the moral of the story is, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Or even more importantly, don't put all your musicians in one car. Maybe just to finish on a lighter note, this is a brilliantly prepared event, and it's flawless, and I'm not surprised knowing the people who are involved in preparing it. But sometimes you just can't prepare for what will arise on an occasion. And very early on in my time in Afri, we organised the first Féile and nothing was ever organised with such detail. There was about a committee of 10 people. It was fantastically successful. The opening event, the opening music and theatre, and then it came to the first presentations, and they were brilliantly done. And then it was the first question. So the chairperson said, has anybody got a question here? And there was silence, as there usually is. And then he said, there must be somebody must have a question. So a woman put up her hand and said, you see that picture on the wall behind you? Where did you get that picture? Because I had one like that and it was stolen. So, that's, another one was when Kathy Kelly spoke at the Famine Walk, or at Féile in 2013, gave a powerful speech, 2003, and a group who later became the Pit Stop Ploughshares were there, and they, a few days later, took non-violent action in Shannon and went through the courts and eventually were released. But 10 years afterwards, on the way to Féile, I picked up Kieran at Houston Station. He got in the car and we just drove on a bit, and the special branch stopped us and said, what's wrong? And they said, you ran a red light, which wasn't true, but they just wanted to let us know that they knew where Kieran was. And Kieran came to the conference, and the special branch came to the conference and signed in and sat very uncomfortably and very conspicuously in the crowd. So we tried to, address this situation by singing This Little Light of Mine, getting people to wave their candles, and they looked more and more uncomfortable and eventually just slinked out the back of the hall. So it was a non-violent way of moving them on. I am going to finish now. Yeah, just one thing. I asked Donald, because he wasn't coming here tonight, I said, how would you describe the type of theatre that you do? Because I haven't got words for it, as you probably realise by now. But he said, so this is how he described his work. He said, flotation storytelling, turning the upside-down story of civilization right side up, so it stops sinking. So that's a thought for it. There's just two short things I want to do before finishing. One is to acknowledge, we talked about the power of one, like Mary Manning or Tom Hyland or many, many more people you could name, but one person who I think is here with us again tonight has done something amazing recently, and that's Claire O'Grady-Walsh, who wrote a book, an amazing book about the robbing of seed in Kenya, and that has been used by farmers in Kenya to take on the Kenyan government and many of the biggest corporations in the world, and they won their case last week. So. Claire has been a fantastic part of Afri over the many years, and to acknowledge that and to acknowledge this extraordinary and amazing achievement. The last thing I just want to do is, people sometimes say that Afri is authentic, and I hope that's true. I like to believe it's true. But I think if it is, it's because of the people in whose shadow we walk, or maybe the people whose light we follow. And I'm just going to name some of them. Bridget of Kildare, Mother Jones, Louis Bennett, Paula Frary, Giuliano Mercamis, Desmond Tutu, Mary Manning, Tom Hyland, Willie and Mary Carduff, Sonny Jacobs, Jerry Conlon, Chelsea Manning, and more recently, Faten Al-Surani and Ragad Abu Shamala, and the millions of Palestinians and others throughout the world who struggle and resist oppression and injustice. And who inspire us by their courage every day. Thank you.
So that's our Joe. Thank you so much, Joe, and to all of the three organisations who just kind of brought us back over many decades, thinking and reflecting on the struggle and the meaning that it has had for us individually and collectively. So the crack, the hard work, the joy, the rage. Always remember, Joe always used to say, never lose your sense of outrage. And the comradeship that we have felt amongst one another and that we're reconnecting with tonight. I'm also reminded, I'm so happy to hear that news about the court case in Kenya. And it's Claire O'Grady-Walsh who always used to say, we dig where we stand. And in a way, that's what we're doing tonight. We're gathering together to, I guess, revive our energy, to dig where we stand, to do what we can to change the world for the better and to fight injustice. So next, I am really delighted to introduce a wonderful performance piece. And I'd like to invite Sorcha Fox and Gorta Mór to the stage. So together, Gorta Mór and Sorcha focus on cultural resistance, using performance as a tool to confront and challenge oppression in all its forms. They serve as co-facilitators for Carja Awarclan na Saoirse in Éireann, dedicated to honouring Palestinian voices and artists. Their mission is to create a home from home for Palestinian artists, both in Palestine and in exile. And it's a commitment Sorcha and Gorta Mór have taken since they met in Palestine for the freedom of both nations. So thank you so much for being here and for performing with us.
Thank you so much, Nasa. Gura míle maith. Just to respond to Joe Murray, I think we were nervous a bit before hearing Joe's speech. And I had the privilege of directing Fanula and Jimmy Gralton's dance hall. And I remember being dressed as Alice in Wonderland with a big cake outside the Dáil because Joe knew that Easter Monday was a slow news day. Joe and Afri have always deeply understood the power of cultural resistance. And I'm deeply grateful to know Joe. And Joe, don't be worrying. Don't look, Kelly is on the board, is in the group of the Comhlámh Awarclan na Saoirse in Éireann, and he's only getting going. Yeah, so thank you, Joe, for everything over the years. You're an extraordinary person. Afri is an extraordinary organisation.
Will I go now? Hello, can you hear me? Sorry, my voice is a bit tired and sick, but I thought even if I'm recovering from this worst flu that's going on, I wouldn't miss this opportunity. And also I want to start also to thank Comhlámh and Caroline and everyone in Comhlámh for giving us the opportunity to use their space as Garja, Arklin, Nasir, Shan, Aaron, and also for supporting the creation of the play, The Prisoners of the Occupation, which I played the main role in it at that time. And that was a very huge challenge as well for me personally. But not to take a lot of time, I think let's start with what we meant to do. I won't explain what is the poetry or the spoken words we wrote. I will leave it to ye to understand it and think about it. So I will start with my first spoken word poem that I wrote called Voluntary Integration. A different definition of forced exile. At 7 a.m. with a deep look at everything around me, my last moments there. As everything is saying to me, we will meet again soon. A strange feeling hits me for the first time ever. It will be a while till I will be back to this reality, home. The sounds of that comes through the quiet air, the table near the window, a gate to the unknown. And my candle that I called Samir. I lit it with the wish that the end of it is an end to this fear. And the status of Buddha was my only hope then. At 7 a.m. with a deep look at everything around me, my last moments there. As everything is saying, we will meet again soon. And yes, my kitchen tools. That helped me to fight the pain that I was going through. My good memories, my friend, my costume, and I. That part of me, I couldn't bring it over, I tried. But how to? I had to leave it behind me to remind me. To remind me of the smells of the mornings, the cafe of our meetings and my first love, our storytelling sessions, the sounds of the streets full of joy, the orange taxis, a taxi that I took to cross 3 borders, to be what I thought free. I left on a stormy day called Khamasini Day. Hot and dry seasonal winds blowing from the Sahara Desert can go up to 120 kilometers per hour and 55 degrees. As me leaving angered the universe, as if it's telling me, don't leave, we have lost a lot. So you see, you cannot take the roots of a tree at once. It will always leave a seed behind it that will always find its way to grow, live, and resist.
Fatima. In memory of Fatima. In Kafr Nima, outside Ramallah, Fatima. Going blind now, she's propped up in the bed, receiving, like my granny used to, in the flats in St. Ultan's. 5,000 poems remembered in her head. The first woman in the village to go to college. Educated in Damascus, she came home again. Inspired Fida, 28 beside her, in a hoodie and a headscarf, an outlaw, who tells the kids in the camps the old stories. In the armchair, in the small house carved into rock, is Fatima's sister from Ramallah. The prisoners' hunger strike is in the air. Fatima turns her head to Ireland, to us. 66 days, she says. It takes us a second. She's remembering Bobby Sands. In the West Bank, in a little village, in a house carved into rock, Fatima propped up in the bed. She wants a poem. I go out for a smoke thinking of one I wrote, worried I won't remember it, thinking her English isn't good, she won't understand. The poem is called Corduff, about a family in Rossport, willing to go to prison to protect the people and the land. She doesn't have much English. I finish. The first woman in her village to go to college. Educated in Damascus, she came home again to Palestine, to the people and the land. 5,000 poems remembered in her head. She's almost blind. Her eyes meet mine. She nods her head. Rossport, she says. Fatima, we remember you. Oh, it's me again. Yeah. The poem I read for Fatima that day is somebody that Joe mentioned in his speech. I couldn't think of the right poem to read for this amazing woman, and then I thought, I'll just read a poem about an amazing person. This is for Joe and also for Willie and Mary Corduff of Rossport after Willie had been beaten by Shell Private Security. Corduff. Myself and my father made the fields green. Bucket by lonely bucket, small hands frozen to stone, hauled up from the blasted shoreline and spread on the land's old bones. Seaweed picked from the cold dark shore, bucket by freezing bucket. My bent head watching my father's feet and salt in the cracks of my knuckles. My father, his back the shape of a scythe, his Gansey a wind-filled balloon, took my hopeless handfuls and made the black fields bloom. When I straighten my back now and stop to see what my father made, with my Gansey full sail behind me and my hands now the span of my spade, and my children walking beyond toward the path at the edge of the sea, the old bones know that I am these fields and that these green fields are me. They beat me till my hands went limp, till the 6 of them were tired. I played dead as you would for an animal, gone sick in the head and wild. They tell me I must stop fighting. I must lie down and let them pass. They say money is God here, Willie, and protest the roar of an ass. But I hear my father's whisper in every blade of grass, and deep as Doib in Ogoni land, I could feel my father's pulse when bruises bloom on Ogoni throats, Bladderak yellow, the purple of dulse. Foot by aching foot, we nourish this starving land, heart by broken heart, and hand by tiny hand.
So, this piece that I'm going to read, which will be our last piece, and I wrote it the first 2 years I have been here in Ireland. And for me, it does explain cultural resistance and having such a bit of wisdom in us rather than seeing things literally. So I say no and no and no to who says yes, and yes to who says no. No to yes, and yes to no. Why not to why? And what to what? Where to wear and what to wear, anything. It doesn't matter when and when. Just chill and have fun and wait. Wait for your fate. We to the we, and I to the we. We, it's me. They, she, he, us, double us. And all I wanted to do here is to fly and fly. under this moody sky, not wondering why the day became night, no sweating, no tears, not able to cry or shout it out loudly and very high. Dried like flowers, Easter lilies in a box. And you forgot that we are alive and part of these fights. Stay quiet and be wise. And stop giving up hope, yours and others. Stop running from my truth, your truth, our truth, and see. And see what you should see, not as owners or leaders or gods, just wise. And beyond the borders you live in, see the real meaning of our being, our job on this earth, and fight the fear, face the shite, live with no rights, that not all right. And remember, we always were visitors here, and we were given a benefit, a mind, so use it wisely, and don't die before you are equal to yourself, to this universe, and to everything around us. Here you have to be a label, a brand, a type. Shut it out, no doubt. Day and night, wrong and right, black and white. And seagulls cry, rainy days, sad and disappointed land, lost souls all around. And here I am a ghost, left alone for so long to be forgotten. But I see you, and I see them. I feel you, and I feel them. And I remember I am not a case or a conflict. I am not a number in your system. I'm not a research project. I'm not a box to be ticked to fit your agenda. I am not a file. I'm a file that you kept stuck in history of wars and massacres, shame and guilt and unpaid debt. A file that stuck even in the countries that speaks of a freedom. I am the beginning and the end. The unended struggle of Oscar Wilde, Grania Well, Layla Khalid's fight. I am time and I am waiting. Waiting for the gates of a freedom to reopen, but the key was stolen. Garamila Mahagat.
Shukran. I don't know if it says toast at the end of the list we got. So I don't know whether we're doing it but we were speaking about what organisations like Comhlámh and Afri and what we'd like to share with them as a toast. And Fatin to me, we had a piece of Tatriz outside with the hands and a heart with a Palestinian flag, and it said shared love. So the Arabic for love is hub.
Yeah.
Hub.
And for me, I would ask you to raise up your glasses and toast for one thing with hub and hurriye, which means freedom. Freedom for ourselves and for everything around us.
Hurriya.
Garamila Mahagat.
Okay, we are leaving so much richer, I think, after this evening, aren't we? I'm just going to finally call on Laura Foley, who is the chair of Afri, who will just say a few words and give a round of thanks. Thanks, everybody.
Hello, good evening. So I've been asked to say a few words of thanks on behalf of all three organisations. I want to begin by thanking our partners in this celebration, Comhlámh and VSI. It is a joy to mark our shared 160 years of solidarity together and to stand alongside organisations whose values and histories are interwoven with our own. Thank you to those who have spoken and performed this evening, our friends at Comhlámh, Tom Ryder, Ala Amro for his powerful poem in solidarity with Palestine, Megan Atkinson for her spoken word piece for VSI. Thank you to Joe for offering his reflection on 50 years of work for peace and justice and his incredible dedication to Afri. I'd like to thank Nessa for guiding us so beautifully throughout the evening. Thank you to all of our musicians, Del Thorogood, Chris Small, Katerina Dietz and Enda Katan, and to Granamere and Sorka Fox for gifting us their artistry and presence. Our thanks also to everyone who helped create the space tonight. Thank you especially to Tony Daly from 8020 for leading the Objects of Solidarity exhibition, and thank you to Raj in the video booth, who has been such a huge part of capturing and sharing the work of all three organisations with others. A huge thank you to Shaku Maku for the incredible service and delicious food. Definitely worthy of an applause. Thank you to the staff at the Pillar Room, especially Chetan, for their support. Thank you to all of the wonderful volunteers supporting over the last number of weeks and this evening the Threads of Solidarity installation, the welcome desk, the resource table, and in every corner of this room. And particularly a huge thank you to the organising team. Saiv and Comhlámh, Helen from VSI, Ala from VSI, and Katie from Afri. It takes an incredible amount of work to bring together an event like this. This evening took weeks to organise. So I'd like to say a massive thank you from everyone here to the organising team for organising such a wonderful, enjoyable event that so beautifully celebrates all three organisations. And finally, from the heart, thank you to everyone who has supported Afri, Comhlámh and VSI over all the years. Our work is only possible because of the people who walk with us, those who take part in programmes, who volunteer, who challenge injustice, who show up, who imagine better futures, and to keep the flame of solidarity alive. Thank you all.
Thanks a million, Laura. Okay, so the night is still young. We have this beautiful space until for another nearly hour and a half. We have our wonderful musicians who are going to rejoin us and play us into the evening. And a reminder that we still have, you can flow through the spaces, the objects of solidarity, the threads of solidarity, the story booth, and there's also a quiet reflection room. So thank you, everybody. Eat, drink, and be merry.